We're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Women Speaking Sports RVA. We are recording from the Hilton downtown Richmond, and I'm your PG, a little bit of your QB, but tonight we're playing a little 2-on-2 because we are missing our good friends, Dr. Danny and Danielle, but we're still gonna play some ball for y'all today. It's Steph B, it's Lisa, and it's Carrie, and we've got a show for y'all today. Before we even get started, let me just go ahead and shout out our sponsors, Jerry Howard, Fast Signs, and Mike King Biz. You guys can catch us on ESPN Richmond Fridays at 6 a.m. or The Choice on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. You can also follow us throughout the week at Women Speaking Sports RVA. I'm going to shoot a three-pointer real quick and talk to y'all. Ladies, how are we doing?
Listen, can't complain.
No complaints?
March Madness.
March Madness.
What is there to complain about?
I'm getting mad.
I'm getting mad.
I'm getting mad. All right, Lisa, how are you on the left side of the court?
We're playing basketball.
Hey, Carrie, I know you want to talk about football because
We already know.
We already know, but how are you feeling?
That's a good one.
Well, let's just talk about not the elephant in the room, but maybe the goat in the room. All right, you know what? I'm on it today. Okay. Harry, we're just gonna like toss it to you because your boyfriend's back.
He is. So Tom Brady, if you didn't know,
He's watching right now.
2 months later, he's coming back. And yeah, so I'm really excited about it, though I had just finally gotten over the fact that he was retiring.
You just finally recovered.
Right.
Yes, and so I started crying all over again. And I was like, oh gosh, this is tears of joy.
Yeah.
And the moment I saw it on Instagram and it came from him, I was like, whoa, this is, yeah.
She's got her her Instagram notifications on
For Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the very interesting thing is, in case you didn't pick this up, Tom and his two boys went to go see Manchester United play on Sunday. Well, the owner of Manchester United is also the owner of the Bucks.
Yeah. Although no one liked that when they bought Manchester U.
Well, probably not.
Yeah.
Shade.
Well, different
It's the
football.
Blazers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
but anyway, and so Tom was all dressed up. I mean, he had a suit on and everything. So it was, I think it was a serious business meeting. It was not that his sons were there with him, but I think really, I think he was disappointed in the culture in the locker room, wanted a little more discipline, a little bit more focus on what we're here to do. And I think he really spent some time like, if I'm going to come back, these are the things that I want to happen.
Right.
This is what's going to, come back. And I think that's what really took place. And I think, also, I think he was kind of felt, I don't know that he felt forced, but just the way everything came out about his retirement. So
That's
he's
a
back.
good point. That he really didn't get to announce it. It was kind of like it was all happening around.
Right.
But I like that you mentioned that, it's the power of having that much influence on a game.
Mhm.
You can decide to be a 40-whatever-year-old quarterback and speak to the owners of the team and make certain demands. I mean, and that is that, that's that GOAT status.
Yeah.
That is that thing that, because a lot of people were saying, even I was like, why? 6 weeks later, what was it?
Right.
Yeah.
It was staying home with his kids.
Right.
It was like,
It was the honeydew.
It was like, this is, I'm not
Somebody
used
was
to
saying
this.
Giselle made him go to Whole Foods
Yeah.
on Sunday. He was like, I am not, I had enough of that.
I've driven down Mabry Highway and
Right.
on
On
the weekend.
weekend.
He was tired of it.
You
It
know,
only took
seriously,
6 weeks.
whether you like him or not, I think everybody, and I was just speaking to this earlier, you got to respect Tom Brady,
Right.
whether you're a fan or not. I mean, he's really not done anything to not earn respect. So this decision,
Not from a football perspective.
no, not
Right.
from a football perspective, but unlike Brett Favre, Brett Favre was not Tom Brady.
Mhm.
There was no caliber the quarterback that Tom Brady was.
That's
Right.
yeah, that's what
No,
I
I
think.
think
Like
that's
if you
fair.
look at the performance that Tom had last year,
Mhm.
like typically I would say, it's probably a good reason to retire. Just this is risky coming back, right? And
Yeah.
it is always risky for any player, no matter if it's your
Right.
first day or your last season, because so much can happen on the field or off the field.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it is risky, but his performance level last year was exceptional. It was off the charts and one of his best years out of 22 years.
Right.
So I think that's a little bit different than some of the others that you
agree.
might
Yeah.
think,
I
or
agree.
like
agree.
Michael Jordan.
Right.
No,
Right.
It's a
One
little
of the
bit
things-
different than that. Who I love
Right.
Michael Jordan, but
But-
it's just
but-
a little
It
bit
is
different.
It is different. One of the things I wanted to touch on was something that you said, it's been 6 weeks. So like 6 weeks ago, he said, I'm retiring. And then 6 weeks later, he's coming back. And from me and from my perspective, if I didn't really like know Tom Brady, I would think that this is some sort of like PR kind of
Right.
stunt.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Lisa, being like the PR specialist, like what's your take, like not carrying the weight of like who Brady is, but like just as the action itself?
Well, again, I think that's where the respect issue comes in,
Mhm.
because I don't think people are questioning that football is in his DNA. Because let's face it,
Yeah.
we were having this conversation earlier. He doesn't need the money.
Right.
No.
He doesn't need it.
So
Yeah.
why is he coming
easily
back?
could get another job doing something else.
Well,
Well, he had
foundation,
multiple.
you know.
He was
Or not
creating
have
a
a
film.
Right. Or
Or
not.
not have a job. That
That's
doesn't mean
not-
he doesn't have it, or he could just retire and.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too that is really interesting about it is I wonder if he feels he just has a little bit more to prove.
Mhm.
A lot of people who are that driven, ambitiously, in a sports space, in a professional
Yeah.
space,
And
you
competitive.
want to go
Right.
out and competitive. You want to go out at the highest note. If you already have worn the ring, there's only one other thing you want to do is get another ring.
Right. Yeah.
So to leave the way he did, I think you made a great point about some of the drama and the histrionics that were going on with the team and AB and all that. It was very distracting.
Yes. Yeah.
If it were me and I was someone that performed at that caliber in that particular space, I too probably would be like, I don't want my last year marred by all of that. I'm not a Bucks fan, and it was distracting.
Yeah, it was. There was so much.
Well, and it
there
was
so
a
much
whole
going on.
season full of injuries. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, and the final playoff games for the Bucks, like half of the offensive line
Yeah.
was gone. I mean, like
Yeah.
Right.
it was just so challenging, and still for the team to perform at the level that they did. And if Dr. Danny, she would point out my utility players, comment, you just didn't know who was going to be on the field because at any moment somebody was being
Hurt,
off the field
taken
or
off.
hurt. They all need
Yeah.
to go to the TB12 method is what they need to do.
TB12.
A little more pliability for the Bucks, like
Yeah.
TB12 for everybody. But I will say also,
Yeah.
talk about distractions. We did talk like a lot about Patrick Mahomes and his fiance and all the
Right.
distractions she made.
His brother.
What I think
Lord
it
have
speaks volume is Bridget Moynihan was in her comments were like, I am so excited. What was I going to do I was trying to figure out what I was going to do on Sundays.
Right.
And so have that team, and his dad was out speaking, and you had very positive, very
His wife is
disciplined.
very supportive.
Yes,
Right.
That's
Giselle.
always a difficult thing
Yes.
for
Right.
pro athletes. A lot of times, it's the pressure that they're getting
Exactly.
at home to go ahead and hang it up.
Yeah.
And you I think you mentioned Brett Favre, or at least you
Yeah.
mentioned Brett Favre.
Yeah.
When you look at how his career ended, there was a whole lot of talk about that. Is he coming back? Is he not going to come back? And I remember an interview where he talked about feeling the pressure of the familial responsibilities
Yeah.
and things like that. It's absolutely tough, but who that is that committed
Yeah.
can make a decision to walk away from something that's been your
It's in
Right.
his DNA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is. I would say that, and so kudos also to his wife for being,
For
to
being
Giselle,
supportive and just
for being
saying, like,
supportive.
yeah.
And she
That's a
said,
huge
let's go back.
sacrifice.
Let's go
Yeah.
back.
Let's go back. And
Let's go back.
Yes, let's go. Let's do it. And so it's exciting. And now it tells.
Isn't exciting.
And Dr. Danny's probably not excited.
Right. She's not.
I mean,
I had
even
like
in the
receipts
league-
to come back to her for last week because she was, she didn't read the details of the final details from the NFL about really what happened with those footballs. So I'll have that conversation with her for another day.
Well,
We're
to
gonna
be
make
continued.
a note
To
of
be
that.
continued. Yeah. Yeah. Got to keep my receipts. Speaking
But
of,
Deshaun Watson.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
who
Aaron
knows
Rodgers.
what that's going to land.
Yeah.
I mean, now that he's been technically cleared, I mean, he's dealing with the civil suit.
Yeah.
But, immediately owners and GMs started looking at the books. Now I think that it changes a lot for the draft.
Yeah.
Changes a lot in front office. It changes a lot for people who are under cap. Now you're looking like, where can we get this money? He's a talented athlete. He's definitely a talented athlete. I don't want to speak too much to what's going on because we had this conversation last week about the room that we make for the different infractions, particularly in the NFL. But with a grand jury decided not to prosecute. Clearly, they found a reason not to. So leaving that aside and purely focusing on talent, there's going to be a lot to discuss.
Absolutely.
In the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Exactly. And of course, Burrow is going to come back this season, upcoming season. I mean,
but he's not coming back with Bob Gronkowski.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys, of course, Gronk's not going anywhere. His bestie is back. I understand.
Sorry.
I know. It's fine. It's fine. It's all right. But I know Brady's excited.
Star's going to find a new quarterback by the time we get to fall anyway.
No.
That's the big thing. Your team needs to be focused on.
My Steelers. We don't know what we're doing. We've been pretty silent. There's been a lot. Whoa. There's been a lot of trades going on within the NFL this week. Raiders have dropped people. Raiders have picked up people. Cowboys.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's huge. A lot of trades are going on leading up to the draft that's coming up in just a couple months. Speaking of actual retirement, Andrew Whitworth from the LA Rams, number 77, retired this week.
He was for 2 weeks. He was the oldest. When Tom retired, he was the oldest in the NFL. And then Tom comes back and he's like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm gone. I'm gone. But he honestly, the video that the NFL put out was just super sweet. Him sitting.
Nice that they honored
what a great guy.
Yeah,
what a
great guy. He is.
Yeah.
He's given back to his community on numerous occasions. He's always there on the front line when it comes to giving back, being the face of the community for the LA Rams.
Wasn't he nominated or won?
Man of the year.
Yeah. I heard he's excellent with rookie players.
Yeah.
He's a real guy.
A nice mentor.
And the thing about it is a lot of times in pro sports, they get those celebratory moments with their own team. It's nice to see the organization of the NFL acknowledge someone. I mean, you think about this is the equivalent of, someone working at one company for, however many years, get their gold watch and ride it off into the sunset. So I did like seeing that.
Yeah, that was it was very nice. Exactly.
As a money-making vehicle.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they need a little bit more humanized.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but one step at a time.
You're right.
Day by day.
Yeah. A little bit at a time.
A little bit at a time. But of course, going back, Pittsburgh, they are my team. And I feel we're in a season of rebuilding. That's what I like to call it.
Well, you still have your coach.
We still have my, but
and you got a new defensive
coach. New assistant coach. New assistant coach. Just waiting for that QB spot.
Yeah.
Just waiting on news on that QB.
Well, what happens to Joe Burrow when that happens?
No.
She's going to send a letter.
Yeah. Joe Burrow's just fantasy league. Joe Burrow's just fantasy league.
There's nothing to offer. Buffalo to Pittsburgh is not a game. I mean, when it comes to weather or anything.
No. Pittsburgh is cold.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is cold.
So I'll end it by saying congratulations, Gary.
I'm excited.
I want to see you enjoy this season. I didn't know what you were going to do.
Well, the good news is that, everybody's asking me, so what are you going to do with your jerseys and stuff? I was like, they're not going away yet.
No, they're not.
They're not.
And
they haven't been framed yet either. They were ready. They were ready.
Shadow box ready.
Yeah.
I love it. I will say this. His coming back adds a layer of excitement to it.
Yeah.
Really
Oh, yeah.
It does add a palpable layer of excitement of where you're like, you can imagine what the locker room talk is. You know,
Yeah.
when everybody's been working out in this period of time, and they're like, "Are you kidding?" The guy who finally thought he was going to get his chance to be the GOAT,
Right.
and his time comes back,
And they're like, never mind.
"Okay,
Never mind. You got it.
One little thing that's still out there is Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. Did you all see the deal he got?
Oh
I mean,
my.
like that's dumb
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
That's as dumb as the Aaron
I don't
Rodgers.
get it.
It's like
Aaron
throwing
Rodgers,
good money after bad.
Nothing that they're
The
throwing.
$200 million at Aaron Rodgers will not sit well with me unless he wins the Super Bowl.
And he won't.
And he won't.
And
He
no,
won't.
he won't. There's so many talented young bucks out.
And Tom Brady.
Right.
And old bucks. Like
And old bucks. Yeah.
Old stag.
Yeah. But this season is filled with so many talented quarterbacks. I mean, we saw it
It's
last
exciting.
year,
Yeah.
and they can only get better. They can only get better.
Well, you hope so. You know, you
Joe
have to
will.
also remember. You
Sorry.
also have to remember the average lifespan for a player in the NFL is 3 to 4 years.
Mhm.
So
solid.
you know, there's again, like I said, so much can happen, and really, how do you take care of yourself? I'm excited also to see Russell. in
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say,
And the
it doesn't have to be
Broncos.
young. I mean, in perspective, he's not all that young for a quarterback, and
Right.
but he's going to a new team, starting a new career there.
Yeah.
Good
Russell
looking.
Wilson, right?
With,
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, and with a really good surrounding
He's got a
cast.
Yeah.
half. And you know,
I think Van Noy wants to go back to the.
I've heard, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that I heard, like, was reading the blogs and they were saying
Yeah.
something about, what I really love from Russell Wilson is, he's got good character.
Oh,
He
he
does.
does.
And, and when you see people like that in pro sports, because we see a lot,
Yeah.
we
We
talk
do.
about behaviors, demeanor.
We see everything in the circle.
Yeah, we do. And with Russell Wilson, I feel like the Broncos lucked out.
I
You
do
get a
Yeah.
leader that people can respect.
Yep.
You get a family
Absolutely.
man that's going to demonstrate
Yeah.
those things to some of the younger guys, the rookies that are coming in. You get a solid leader. He's a producer.
Yeah.
And he always has been
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I was
from
gonna
the
say.
get-go.
When they don't win a ring, like, they win a ring and then a couple seasons, they have a tough time, or there are changes in the staff and the whole team is in flux. People like Russell Wilson also often get overlooked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or rated as overrated.
Right.
And I think he deserves every bit of
I
what he
agree.
gets
And one
as
of the
far as
things
his
about
talent.
Russell Wilson, not name dropping, but I'm good friends with his mom.
Mhm.
He used to live here in Richmond. And when he was going to he started at West Carolina State.
Yep.
She told me that when he was younger, he wrote a letter to himself. And I don't know, I think he's talked about this a little bit in the public eye about why not me. He's 5'10". He was told, you'll never play in the NFL. You can't see over the line.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what did he do? He scrambles, he gets out of the pocket,
Yeah.
and look where he is. I remember the funny story that I have is when he was at Wisconsin and we were having lunch together, and she said, I don't know what he's gonna do next, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, Tammy, if football doesn't work out for Russell, I mean, he's an articulate, good-looking guy, maybe he should pursue TV. I mean,
How did I land on
Yeah,
women speaking?
but I
sports
just
saying
know
that?
from the get-go, from he's always been a really genuinely good guy,
Yeah.
Mhm.
has strong faith and family oriented.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Well, and to follow on to that, he still is a Yankee. So he's tied with the Yankees organization after being
Yes.
traded
Isn't that
from
crazy?
starting
Right.
out with Denver, being
Mhm.
and drafted by Denver. So, but he works with the players on character development and other things off field. That's what he does for
huge.
his Major League Baseball requirements.
That's his,
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
he teaches. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really,
awesome.
because we were just talking maybe a couple weeks ago about how important it is for players to hold high moral standards on the field
What
and
about-
off the field, and to have a mentor
Yeah.
and have a mentor like
Yeah.
Russell Wilson making this much impact. That's great.
Now,
Yeah.
what I do hope is that he has an opportunity to come and stabilize and build.
Yeah.
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 Because
the
the
fans are so fickle.
they are.
They are. They want to ring right away because
Right.
you got to ring somewhere else.
The
You
building
know, and
blocks
they
are
wanna see-
there.
But I
Right.
don't know that that's the character of Denver.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's more so with the rowdy fans, with Cowboys.
Denver's kind of more of a laid back, very Western city
Right.
I heard
versus.
that, Star.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I was waiting for the fire. I was waiting for the fire.
Okay.
I missed it.
I literally had one of these
Moving it
moments.
on.
sorry. I'm
But
sorry to
you're
cut
right.
you off. Yes.
And again,
it's
the
not
coach
demonstrated
situation
character
in
of them.
Seattle was a
Correct.
huge distraction. Like the coaching situation,
Yeah.
and the whole
Yeah.
season
Yeah, it
was
was.
just, it was
Yeah.
never going to be pulled together for Seattle because they couldn't pull themselves together at the leadership level.
I think they put a lot of weight on Russell Wilson
Yes,
as well.
that was not
You know,
fair.
your
Well,
coaching staff is not together, but you're leaning on the quarterback
Yeah.
to salvage everything.
That's just not
That's not
how
the
that
work.
works.
So I saw something a couple weeks ago that I didn't realize, and they said the turning point with Seattle was that decision during the Super Bowl where they had that
That
pass,
pass that was
and you
I
know
mean-
both the Russell and the head coach took accountability for that, but their team was never the same.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I would agree. I
Yeah.
would agree with that. We watched them, you know, throughout the season. You heard a lot more about Russell Wilson in previous seasons.
Right.
yeah.
You know, last season, even when his games were televised, it wasn't like his name, you know, was attached to the highlights of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's really important that I value with smart pro athletes is just knowing it's time.
Mhm.
Knowing it's time to go. And it's not always you, but it may be that it's not for you in that
That-
space.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
You know, his talent is still there, hugely capable, obvious knowledge for the game. What's the point? It wasn't like he needed to retire. You just need a new home.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Seattle it will be interesting to see how Seattle bounces back.
It does.
Took them a while to build to this
It
point.
did.
Took them a while to get, you know, to a point of where they were acknowledged as ring contenders.
Mhm.
I don't think you're gonna see it again for a while.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure Pete Carroll can.
I
Well,
don't
not
think
either,
so.
but that's just
I don't
my
have a lot of
personal-
I don't have
I
a
would
lot of
agree.
faith. in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's already difficult when you look at college coaches that transition to pro.
Oh,
I mean, we saw Saban.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Look
a
how that turned out.
disaster.
Yeah, that
Debacle.
wasn't-
Yeah.
You know, and I think that more and more they're going to start looking closely at whether I think Saban was the tipping point
Yeah.
to where they make those decisions from now on
Yeah.
of whether or not it makes sense to have guys who are used to dealing with college players come in managing a grown man
Mhm.
making just as much money as they are.
Yes and no,
in those
because but look at
cases.
Jimmy
Yeah.
Johnson.
I mean, but that was a different era.
No,
Yeah.
that I'm saying it was a different.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
when Jimmy Johnson was coming in, you would also know that you would admit that coaches had way more power.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
They
could
did.
make or break
Well,
your career.
yeah.
No matter what,
Change.
snap of a
Exactly.
finger.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Shame.
anybody has any power anymore in Dallas.
Yeah,
except
well,
for Jimmy
Right.
or in general, when it comes to the coaching staff,
Right.
they own it. Their power is
Yeah.
very limited. You know, and especially it's going to be even more that way as you watch the NCAA get deeper into
Yeah.
being able to NCAA athletes being able to get sponsorships,
Right.
Right.
to being able to
Right.
brand themselves, to bring in, you know, a level of money that allows them to be established before they even make the team. It's going
Yeah.
to change the negotiation
It will.
points too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that
Looking
I've
forward to seeing
really
how that
seen
works out.
this year with the NFL is how the coaching has really affected the team.
Yeah.
I feel like this year more than ever, it's just been so prevalent with how well you coach is how well your results are produced.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm super
How
excited.
people work with you.
And that's
Yeah.
why, and that's why I'm super excited. For example, I know maybe in a couple years back, I really felt like the Raiders was the place you would go if your career was dying. I'm just gonna say it. But now I think it's transitioning over here to Washington. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I mean, Washington is a prime example of why it's not just about the coach, it's about who you allow to own
Yeah.
the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
The
Giants
fish
too.
rots from the
That
head.
too.
You know, but the difference with the Giants, and not because I love them and that's my team, the difference is you don't have a lot of question about the overall morality of the ownership.
Mhm.
You don't
Right.
see the Maras out there, ready to argue
Right.
or fight.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, them and the Roonies with their connection, they
Mhm.
have created a solid foundation as family owners
Mhm.
in the league. Do they make all the best decisions? No. But I would say that Dan Snyder is the epitome of what to do wrong when looking for NFL ownership.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know what? That's a great leaf to leave unturned, and we will get back to that next week. But we're about to go into madness. We're about to talk about March Madness. That is starting this week. Just give us a few more minutes to get off the turf and head to the court, and we'll be right back.
Gotta change the locker room.
It's a good thing we don't before this show.
All right. We're back. Women Speaking Sports, RVA, filming live here at the Hilton. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Jerry Howard, Fast Signs, and Mike King Biz. You can find us on ESPN Radio as well as The Choice, and you can follow us daily at Women Speaking Sports RVA. I'm going to go ahead and toss the ball over to Lisa because, y'all, she has got something on the table that I can't even see through, and I'm just dying to know what is the bag.
Good chocolate.
So Lisa, tell us what you have for us.
So before I found out who was going to be on the panel tonight, I did want to say, after last week when things got a little spicy, I wanted to sweeten things up a little bit. Okay. So
Dr. Danny was here last week.
I'm going to save you one, Danny and Danielle. But, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, that one of my clients is a sweet shop in Blackstone, Virginia, and they make all their own homemade sweets there. She's been a chocolatier for 30 plus years. And so, we're all like, okay. So she made,
this is like Christmas in March.
Buttercup. This is like Reese's kicked up 5 notches.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
And I have some for our support team over
Please
there
do
as well.
not tell Danielle.
This-
Dr. Danny
oh my
said
God.
we need to save them
Because no, if
are like,
they're not going to make it.
these are cute.
Carrie, there goes your marathon calorie.
She ran 10 miles.
She ran, so
She's already absorbed.
She's fine, Carrie.
Hey, there's protein in here.
Yeah, you're right.
Good.
Is it good? Is it delicious?
I can tell by Carrie's
Okay,
face.
I'm
She's
gonna
like,
wait
I'm in
till
love.
the end.
I'm gonna wait.
No. Why are you waiting?
Okay, never mind. Well, let me eat it.
Look, Carrie is definitely a boss. Why are you
She
waiting?
makes her own chocolate.
Oh my God.
I know, right? I know.
Oh, you know what's funny is I don't even like chocolate like that.
Oh.
But this,
This is delicious.
This
Oh.
is really, I mean, anything that they make, and it's a small.
honey, this is all right with me. This is all right with me.
Well, Danny had suggested we take a field trip down there,
I
so I
agree.
think that
Yeah.
would be good.
Wow. Absolutely.
Women Speaking Sports remote.
Period.
Going to Southern Virginia.
Yeah, there you go.
Lisa, give them a shout out one more time so our audience knows where they can find this amazing chocolate.
Okay, it's Liberty Hollow Sweets on Main Street in Blackstone, Virginia. And it's Jeannie and Dale, they own it, and they're just amazing people.
Well,
Liberty Hollow.
Jeannie,
All right.
salute you.
Jeannie Dale, thank you so much.
Salute.
All right. So we've got a little bit of a plot twist on the show. Ladies, all my ladies out there, you know, you love to listen to us, gentlemen. We love that y'all listen to us too. And we thought that it would be interesting, that's a good word, today to actually bring on a male. And don't worry, ladies, we have checked him out.
We had an interview
Incredible.
Credentials.
We checked his credentials. We interviewed him.
We vetted him.
Like, he is all right with us.
He was still a little skeptical about it.
You're now coming to the table. Yes. But I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself. So, good sir, who are you?
I am Kelvin Oliver, resident and native of Richmond, Virginia.
Yes.
Some people have probably seen me, yelled at me on several basketball courts throughout the city in various games, from rec ball, middle school, high school, college, you name it, and people know me as a basketball junkie.
All right.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
perfect.
Perfect. Because we're getting mad. We're about to get
Okay.
mad.
All right.
And we appreciate you coming onto the show.
But we won't throw anything at you.
All
Yeah,
right.
nothing crazy. But we also have heard from the grapevine that you are our second half new sponsor. Oh, all right.
Excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about
about what you do.
Well, if we know that before,
What-
we
I
might have
know,
gone to the
right?
table quicker.
Yeah.
So I actually own a mortgage company here locally called Core Mortgage.
Core Mortgage.
We're located in the Boulders off of Midlothian Turnpike, and we do residential as
Chesterfield
well
County?
as commercial lending. Yes.
Chesterfield County, shout out
All
to
right.
Chesterfield County. You know that we'll help Danny Fitzhugh. Are you a member of the Chesterfield Chamber?
I talked to her last week. I will be.
Oh, she will get on you.
Right.
Here's your commission for that.
Danielle.
I'm a check. I'm a salesperson. You know how this works.
That's right.
Well, let's
Thank
go.
you for joining us.
Yes,
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. We're excited that you are joining the Women Speaking Sports
Right.
family,
Yes.
and we welcome you with open arms.
Thank you. I appreciate
We're
it.
very happy to have you. So before, let's kind of start off on a high note, congratulating Mimi Bolden Morris is the first female graduate assistant at the Power 5 football program after being hired at Michigan.
My team.
Your
Coach Jim.
See, Carrie is on a high this episode. Carrie is like Brady meeting.
Like a winning night all around.
You're just winning.
That's all I know. Win, win,
Oh,
win.
oh my, oh my, honey, yes. Go ahead, Carrie, grab your
That's all
W.
I know, y'all.
Well, we just want to give a shout out to Mimi Bolden Morris. That's a great
Well,
accomplishment.
the basketball connection is she played at Georgetown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
played basketball at Georgetown, and she grew up watching her dad with her brother coaching him,
Yeah.
and she got the bug for football, and her brother plays for Michigan.
Yes.
All right.
The defensive end.
Yes.
Here's the thing that a lot of people might not realize about this, a GA position, she's getting her
This is
degree,
ready
her
for
master's,
coaching.
master's degree, and coaching at the same time. What a great experience for her. And kudos to Michigan.
And
for
at the
allowing a
big house.
female,
Right.
Because that's a very
It is.
coveted coaching position for
Absolutely.
young people
Yep.
to get their degree and also have a position where they can get their foot in the door.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And that foot in the door, I've recently was reading about the transition positions into pro sports. The foot in the door of a GA, both at basketball and in football programs, they teach you even some of the back office. So if you decide you don't want to be on the
100%.
field,
Right.
there are corporate opportunities there.
Absolutely.
And that's
So
just great.
Shout out to her.
Maybe
That's-
my
We love a lot of
Yeah, there you go.
we love a lot of
Say that
career and
you don't wanna
diverse
be a GA
opportunities.
Down for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The utility team. That's right. So before we even start diving down specifically to the March Madness teams, I kind of want to talk to Calvin about something. So you are a ref for a lot of Richmond locally teams. Going forward, when we watch March Madness, we want good games, but we also want fair games.
Okay.
And so as a ref, like what are you looking for to accomplish that everybody is while they're playing their best, but like also having a fair game?
Okay. So I'll speak to this from the official standpoint, and we all know that nobody likes officials, right?
Right.
Because no
Yeah.
matter what you do, half of the gym is going to be upset with you,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
But I'll tell you a few things that may help a little bit in terms of the public perception for officials. The one thing I want to point out is that the vast majority of officials do a lot of work in the off season, as far as conditioning, as well as watching film, breaking down, doing training, going through the rules, etc. So I think if the average fan knew what most officials do in the off season, they would have a better appreciation for their preparedness
Right.
and their just work that they put in.
That's a
That is
really
a
good
good
point.
I don't think on average that we consider, now I'll say you're watching a football game and a basketball game, and there are those moments where you're like, man, that guy, he's running the court. He's back.
Exactly.
I always am
Yeah,
impressed with
right.
how much they keep up
Right.
with the pace of the game and the athletes. So I guess it would make sense that you're
Yeah.
training, conditioning
Right.
off,
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
see out of shape refs really.
Right. So if you think about it this way, we talk about it each year the ref gets a year older, the kids stay the same age.
Right.
Right.
That's good.
They're
That's
getting
good.
older,
That's
but the
good.
kids are coming in. So I think that would be super helpful if fans just knew what referees did in
That you're
the
committed
offseason.
to it.
Yeah,
Correct.
and I think talking about fans, I feel like we could put fans in like two categories, right? You have your fans that are just love the sport, love the team. That's it.
Support
Very
the
surface
subject of the
level,
sport,
very
no matter what.
surface level fans. But then you have those fans that are thoroughly invested, not just in the team, but the coaching and what goes into it, the organization and the referees and how important that is. So I think that's a really good point that everybody, when you're watching a sport like that, you should, educate yourself, because why not?
So here's my big question.
Okay.
Oh, I feel like that was
Right.
Karen is a boss now.
So I'll tell you, how do you feel at the end of the game? Say, wow, I just really roughed a great game. Or like, how do you run out of yeah, like I'm just trying to how do you get with your refs together and say, just trying to figure this out, because you just see them run off the field and you're like, okay,
They seem
or the court,
they
whatever.
seem no matter what happens,
They're gone.
they're
They're
gone.
gone.
Like the Cowboys, when that whole incident
Right.
happened,
Oh,
or
that
we
was
see it in
awful.
basketball.
Yeah, basketball's
Yes, you
been
do.
bad.
Where the teams are ready to kill each other, and the refs are like, I'm out of here.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
What do you guys do post game? That's a great
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, so I'll speak to, actually, I'll talk about the pregame first. So
Okay.
the pregame is very important because remember, unlike football, basketball crews don't travel together. So you're going to be working with different people. So it's important to have that pregame, and you're going to talk about a variety of things. Have you had any weird plays that have come up? So we go through different scenarios. What happens if we, heaven forbid, have a fight? Who's going to watch the bench? Who's going to take numbers mentally, etc.
This is so educated. I need to take notes.
Good for you. Good for you.
Kelvin went from being vetted to being invited back.
Right. So part of your pregame, you talk about things such as making sure we know the foul count. For college basketball, making sure that the shot clock has been reset properly. Things such as, hey, if I have marginal contact 80 feet away from the basket, and that foul is going to put somebody on the line for a 1-on-1, is that what I want to? Is that the contact that I want to call? And you have to have that calibration between what's marginal contact and what's illegal contact.
Well, that's where most of the
You
arguments
have to
come.
have.
And that's when we go, look at that,
You do.
they play.
That's absolutely
Yeah, they play. It
And-
was clearly a foul.
Right. Right.
Oh,
And-
It's scary for me. It's scary for me.
And you're going to talk about what we call matching plays. Now, it doesn't mean that, hey, if I call a charge down this end, and if it's a block at the other end, that I'm going to no, but if it's a similar play, we should be calling it a similar way.
Right.
That makes sense. So then after the game, you'll have a post game, and you'll talk about, hey, at 7:32 on the clock of the second half, the guy's hand, did you get a good look at that? Because I couldn't blow my whistle because I wasn't sure whether it was basket interference or not.
Right,
So
right.
there's a lot of communication.
Absolutely.
about-
So you'll talk about things and plays that maybe you didn't have the greatest look at, but there was a crash. You're like, I've got to have something. Was his foot in the restricted area? Was it not? And the other thing too is your condition, you're trained on what to look at. So now remember, as fans, myself included, we follow the ball, right? But now if a guy's driving in and I have what we call a secondary defender that's coming over, if I'm looking at the ball and there's a crash, I don't know how he got there.
Right.
So you're trained as that official. You don't look at the ball. You look at the secondary defender. So now I know, boom, there's a crash. His foot's in the restricted area. Boom, I know that's a block.
Right.
He's outside of the restricted area. He's legal 2 feet facing the player. Boom, crashes. Well, that's a charge, right? But now as a fan, I'm looking at
You're
the
looking at the
ball.
ball.
I don't know as a fan how he got there.
Yes.
Well, less than I ever had.
I'm so excited.
You don't realize too how quickly it is,
Right.
that you have to make a judgment on stuff.
Yeah.
We're
Absolutely.
we just see the whole floor up here, and you're down there, you have to make a decision quickly.
You have to do it
And we
quickly.
don't, not always. understand.
Consider all the things that you have to consider.
You want to hear something
care. I want
else
the ball
that
back.
is a little unusual because most people think the block charge is the hardest call. And it is, it can be a very difficult
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
You know what's probably a little more difficult?
What?
Are out of bounds plays.
Oh.
Think about watching an NBA game
Right.
and how many times you're like, I don't know who that ball went off
Yeah.
of.
Right.
Then you can see one angle, you're like, oh yeah, that's off of white. Then another angle comes, you're like, wait a minute, I think it's off of red. Right,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are some very difficult calls to
Yeah.
make, or actually the out of bounds calls I would argue are just as difficult, if not more difficult than the block charges.
It makes you when you're at the level when you're
Right.
coaching, you know, you're refereeing a college game. You probably miss those moments where you're calling a double dribble at the little PE level.
Right.
It would be much easier to deal with.
Yeah, so
Calling a walk at the PE level
Right.
when they're carrying the ball down.
And so I'll tell you what's funny. I had a chance to go to the All-Star game. I took my 21-year-old son there, and I was talking to some guys in Ohio, and they had a podcast that was talking about sports. And these guys were very knowledgeable, but they told me they thought NBA officials were horrible, right? And I tried to give them a different perspective. And I told them, I said, well, I actually think NBA referees are the best officials in all of sports, right? And we started talking, and I could just see in their faces, they're like, man, we never thought about that. We never thought about this.
You're still a professional.
Right,
Yeah,
it is.
right.
Now, can
You
I
don't
give
get there
a
by
shout
being a
out
PB.
since
Yeah,
I am
please.
on a panel with women? So we just concluded the Virginia High School League state championship games.
Yes.
History was
There was some
made,
sadness there for
really.
yeah.
Well,
there was.
But I want to shout out the 3 young ladies who became the first all-female crew to referee a boys' state basketball game.
Shout out your name.
Right. Well, I'm going to apologize because I only know one of them. and
That's okay.
that is Danielle Smith, and she is a Richmond resident at this time. So
All right.
Congratulations,
Congratulations, lady.
We love Danielle.
That's right.
also want to give a shout out to the NBA referee Tony Brothers, who was very instrumental in making that happen. So I think that's worth
That's
noting.
great.
And thank you for noting that, because we
Yeah.
do like to highlight the women that are doing things and
Especially in the
making
Richmond
creative
area.
change,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have one question because we were all kind of going back and forth.
Okay.
A week or two ago, maybe last week, we were talking about a women's coach
Okay.
in the NCAA
Oh,
that was livid with a call that was made, and she was following the ref around,
Okay.
pointing her finger and kind of, you know, you've seen it,
And she was teed up.
and she was bish, and they teed her up.
Okay.
I felt like it's just passion, and you're used to seeing it, and refs are used to seeing it, and,
Right.
and I think people called it differently or saw it differently because she happened to be a women's coach, exhibiting behaviors that we are more likely to see from a men's coach.
Right.
oh.
Is it
But she had her
that
fist.
if a coach is walking behind you, shaking their fists and yelling, does it really bother you that much? Do you really think it has that much of an impact in the moment if she hasn't put her hands on you or anything like that, or him, any coach?
Well, this is just, I'll give you my take on it. So there is a certain decor that you need to have, right? And so officials do need to handle business when a coach is showing them up. And that's whether
Showing
it's
them up. Okay.
male, female.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where there is a level of respect. And so I'm one that says, I don't believe that anyone should be disrespected. I don't care if it's a high school kid. Think about when you're in high school. One of the most embarrassing things is to get embarrassed in front of your peers,
Yeah.
right? And so as an official, I do my best not to embarrass someone.
Right.
And what you can do, and I learned this from going to a camp from a very well-known college official, is try to find who the best players are on the team, right? And this comes with preparation, right? You talk to other officials, you watch film, etc. Go to those players. Hey, 12, man, I saw you had 26 the other day. Man, it's hard stopping you. But look, if I need some help tonight with any of your players, can I come to you and give you help?
Wow.
Wow.
Right. You
Build
would
that
be
rapport.
Yeah, rapport
surprised
building before.
how far that can get you, right? Because now you develop a little bit of a rapport. Now that's not to say that he may or she may not get upset with you,
Right.
but at least you've developed some
They were
sort of
like,
rapport.
Yeah.
all right.
And I call on that. Hey, 12, can you talk to number 3 for me? He's getting a little, I got you, ref, I got you.
I don't want to call him.
You, right,
Yeah.
instead of, man, you know, that, and now you're embarrassing the players. It's not normally going to turn out well for you because
Wow.
you lashed out. What do you think is coming back to you, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
And then
that
there's
just
Mama Bear.
elevated the temperature of the crowd, of
Yeah.
the teammates, etc. So there's some things you can do. And I'm not saying that this is going to work in all cases, but you simply can't have a coach acting out in that manner because now if
Fair
that
enough.
coach
From
does
the
it,
ref's mouth.
the fans now do it, etc. And now as an official, I'm losing control of the game.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
I definitely
We,
accept that.
you know, that you have just really just opened at least my eyes. I can
You
speak.
will,
That's right.
yeah.
I'm just kind of like, wow. I feel like
might be
I
pro
just
rep
wanna
now.
know that
Yeah,
there's
correct,
certain-
correct.
Baby steps, baby steps.
I want to know that there is a man in the audience smirking because he thinks it was a good idea that he made this recommendation.
Yeah.
So I just want to.
That was Mike King busy all year.
Yeah.
I just put it in his 2 cents. Right. But look, so we have got our brackets. March Madness is starting up. Now, my bracket name, I just want to go ahead and throw it out there because my bracket name, you know, with the help of Joe Burrow last season, took me to, you know, second place out of 12.
Okay.
And so Mrs. Steal Your League, that is my fantasy name. We're
Mrs.
back.
What?
Mrs. Steal Your League.
Steal your
Steal your
lead.
lead.
Yeah, you know the song Mrs. Steal Your Girl, Mrs. Steal Your Girl. I'm Mrs. Steal Your League. Haley is like, she's not really.
Carry a shark.
I don't know. But let's go ahead and talk about the women's tournament bracket. Who do y'all see performing well throughout March Madness?
I could start, Stanford. Are we
Mhm.
talking the women's?
Yeah, we're
Oh,
talking women's.
yeah.
I definitely,
Throw me
I
off.
think,
So this is-
not only because of the team that they have put together, but their coach is incredible. How long has she been there? For
Long
a
time.
long
Yeah.
time.
Okay, well, here's the matchups.
She's, I think, I don't know about UConn. They're always competitive, but I think Stanford really has the best chance of winning it all.
Yeah.
I mean, this is coming off of, they won it last year as well. They won the whole thing last year.
I would have to say some of my favorites. Well, my Michigan girls, yeah, they're on fire.
They're looking good.
And-
There's a lot of buzz around them.
Could be a little Cinderella.
Oh, wait. Can
I mean,
just-
I'd love to see a new Cinderella story like we had with Gonzaga years ago.
Yeah.
I'd love to see
Well, how
somebody
about
on the
Longwood,
women's
ladies?
side.
Come
Well,
on.
that's
Longwood.
Right.
Longwood, the Spiders.
You never know.
I remember when Liberty was that had that potential, on the women's side. There's always something to talk about in these brackets, and I think
Well, that's what makes it mad.
the
Yeah.
women are
Excitement.
just really already demonstrating a lot of potential. I gotta say, I've been watching Stanford pretty closely.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it for them simply because they won it last year, but
No.
they really still
And they have a lot of
talented
Yeah, they've got a lot of
players. They have
momentum
a lot
going.
of returning players. I think it's going to be hard to handle them. And
I agree.
I think what they're building is very similar to that UConn legacy that we
Mhm.
saw,
Yeah.
that Tennessee Volunteers legacy
Yeah.
that we saw. It's like this is where it all starts. Keeping a team that's mature, retaining those players being part of the recruitment of new players, and the excitement built around the program. I think Stanford has a really good shot.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
interesting. It just made me think of something that Michael Phelps said last week about Tiger getting into the Hall of Fame, and he said it's easier to get to the top of the mountain than it is to stay there.
Yes.
Mhm.
Good
And
point.
so I think we're seeing in the women's basketball and in the men's basketball this whole season, we're seeing a lot of little changes in dynamics, and I think it's going to be a really fun tournament on both sides.
I agree.
Which is
Yeah.
exciting for
And
the
Yeah.
there's
fans.
going to be
Question.
some
Yes.
opportunities for refs to be heated too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Calvin's got a question.
What do you guys think about South Carolina?
No, I love Dawn Staley.
I was gonna
think
say,
she's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something about that Stanford team that just seems to be more consistent than South
Gotcha.
I'm going to say that Dawn Staley is always my emotional pick. I
I
love how
Right.
she
I
motivates
agree.
a team.
Yeah.
I think if anybody is going to shock you,
It's
would
gonna be her.
definitely-
Yeah.
definitely be so-
Yeah.
And I'm the person that would probably blow up my bracket just because I want to see her win
Same.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
so badly. I think that she's earned it more so than a lot of other coaches there from the perspective of how much she puts into that program.
So I know I talked off camera about being a homer.
Yeah.
Right. So of course, I've always loved Dawn Staley, but of course she's got the UVA connection,
Right.
so we
Yeah.
claim her a little
So
bit.
does
even though
Danielle.
she's-
Danielle loves,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
Yes,
And then
does.
of course, talking about Stanford, we have Miss Anna Wilson.
Anna
That's
Wilson.
right.
Yeah.
So of
We
course,
mentioned her a couple weeks ago.
we claim her as well. Can I tell you a funny story about her? My son was working out, and I saw her playing, and she was much younger. This is when she was still here.
My daughter was on my team.
Okay.
She played with Anna.
I
Cool.
saw her in a pickup game play against a women's professional basketball player, and I was like, who is that? I had no idea that it was Russell Wilson's little sister.
Uh-huh.
She was incredible. So from that day on, I've been a huge fan of hers.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely.
I
Love
enjoy
it.
watching her play. She definitely, I mean, that kind of, first of all, you make a good point about making it to the mountaintop and staying there. But making it to this level of the mountaintop, that's not really that easy.
No.
You know, you have so many talented athletes year after year after year. You have them go through, you know, the high school, you know, where they're committing to, so you have commitment day.
Mhm.
And some of those athletes never show up for the real game. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to perform at that level. So when they get to March Madness, these young people are amped up.
Oh, yeah.
This is
The
an
hype,
opportunity
The
sometimes.
excitement.
In the early rounds, some of these people have never had the opportunity to have TV
Oh, yeah.
time.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, so
Yeah.
I get excited just for that. And when we get to, you know, when we have those midnight games that are, you know, really, they're pressing, and you see these
Right.
athletes and they
Right.
want to win so bad. The hardest part for me with March Madness is when people have to go home.
Go home.
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
And
the
And
seniors.
when
I-
that part, and you know,
Yes.
one of the things that you just said, it's like, you know, a lot of people, they're starting to get these TV times, this excitement.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect their play?
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? You know, I can't wait to see those
Right.
people, you know, how are they going to perform with those new pressures?
Yeah.
And there's always a Cinderella team.
There's
Always.
always.
I think one of the biggest stories in March Madness was the year that Danielle, I love you, was when UVA lost to the 16th
16th.
seed. but
Oh,
the
yeah.
bottom
Yeah, they
tier
won it
team-
all. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, even here, you know, down the
Another
street from us,
NIT.
we watch VCU.
Yeah.
You know, and they,
Oh, gosh.
the-
What a year.
that- it was electric. I was.
It was so
really-
crazy
I
when we
mean,
had
it was
VCU
crazy.
and you
Shaking.
are in the Sweet
Yeah.
16.
And
We're just like, oh, yeah.
That was so.
And then
fun.
everybody, I mean, that, I would tell you, I would think that is probably the proudest moment that I have had in this region was during that time, because everybody was just coming together.
Right.
Really
Supporting the
were.
two
Yeah.
teams,
Right.
seeing VCU, and when VCU went there, it was Monument Avenue 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody was going out.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Just go in,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh, I mean, it
enjoy,
was
celebrate.
that was so
I'm trying to
amazing.
remember, the place that I watched VCU
What?
play is closed now, but it was not far from here, and I'm telling you, it was electric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And those kinds of environments, just watching it in a room full of people makes you think about being present. I can't
Yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
being a ref on the court.
Right.
With all that
with all that
excitement, yeah.
that level of energy. I'm curious, have you ever had a moment when you're reffing the game, but you feel like a fan, like you're in it? Or are you so removed emotionally and mentally that you just came for the work?
That's a very good question.
That is. Stephanie
Um,
always asks those questions.
Right. So now keep
Don't
in
ref your
mind,
team.
let me have this disclaimer.
Okay.
So at the level that I ref at, it's not quite that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are some times where kids, they're so athletic now that they will do something. And
You're
yeah,
right.
you become a little bit of a fan, like,
Right.
wow, I didn't know he could do that.
Yeah.
Right, that's
So
Yeah.
yeah, there are
Yeah.
those times, and I can even remember when I played long ago of being in a game actually playing, and somebody on the other team does something, and I'm like,
Wow.
right.
Can you imagine being a kid opposite Michael Jordan when
Right.
he was originally coming out? You're like, who brought this here?
Right, right.
How did
Who are
this
you?
happen?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think one of the exciting things will be also.
Who got turned down by UVA?
I mean, how, right? I think one
Who
of the
did?
exciting.
Michael
Jordan.
Jordan.
I never knew that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Listen, Jordan never misses an opportunity to talk about who didn't want him.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That is true. That is true.
You blame him. The high school coach that didn't want him.
I
It's
know.
like, okay,
Yeah,
already.
we get it. We get it.
I'm sorry.
Right. right.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to in the bracket as well, is I'm looking forward to seeing how many of the high performing teams, the ones that come in seated, in the top 10, really live up to it. Because
Well, Duke is crashing.
I
don't have them
exactly why I'm bringing that up.
Are they coming back? Are they going to come
That's
back?
exactly why I bring it up, because when I saw Duke last play, and we discussed that, and I'm like, this is your
My boys are
performance
tired. That's why they gave me Virginia
before
Tech.
you go to the,
Maybe they should have taken a nap before the game.
Well, they're gonna need something a little bit more, because once people see that little chink in the armor, and you're coming into March Madness, and that's perfect for all the other teams to be like, okay, we see it. And it also is one of those things we were talking about, the whole celebration around, Coach K and everything that was going on. Is it too much for the time of year? Should they have held off on all those things? I think it's a little bit distracting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those teams that are naturally seeded, because I do believe there's this element of, you're not going to put Duke in the, in a 9, 10, 12, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I think some of those teams naturally get certain seeds. They play certain games during the year at certain times, those money games and everything else. It'll be interesting to see who shows up in these initial.
Yeah, I hope my
Are you
Michigan
saying
boys
there's a
do.
Duke bias?
Well,
Carolina fan.
well,
And
Carolina Blue.
Yeah.
right. And speaking of Carolina, we're going to give my man Armando Baycott a shout out. Product. Also for Gonzaga, Rasir Bolton is also a local product. Right.
I'm friends with his dad, right?
Okay.
We need
Absolutely.
him on.
Come on, Lisa knows everybody, so.
My daughter played,
Okay. Yep.
But what a great family.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I talked about this before, that on his free time, he does a lot of community service. During the season, when do you even have free time?
Right.
Right.
So
And,
he's
I mean,
amazing.
Because again, with those student athletes, I was married to someone who was a student athlete, were young on campus, and he was an NCAA Division I football player. They barely have time.
It's a
for
full-time
homework.
job.
It is.
It is a full-time
And think
job.
of like the schools, and I'm not saying that all the schools, but Duke and Stanford, I mean, you're talking about high-level education
Yeah,
and you're a
absolutely.
student athlete at the same time.
Yeah.
I will
Duke
tell
is
you,
basically
if you
Southern Ivy League.
If you
It
ever get
really
a
is.
chance,
Yeah.
go to the Student Athlete Scholars Dinner that's here in Richmond. Sports Backers put it on. And you sit there in that room and you hear about what these kids have done, and you're like,
You feel like a
Really?
star.
Right.
A few years ago, a kid was like an Eagle Scout. High performing. I'm like,
How do you have time?
Exactly.
When do you sleep? When do you
yeah,
sleep?
but you know what? One of the
no sleep.
One of the best stories that I took away from that, one of the best stories I took away from that, the young boy went and played at UVA football, but he played 5 sports and he excelled in all of them.
Wow.
The reason why he played in all those sports was because he didn't want to go home. His mom had sold his laptop for crack. I mean, it was like a whole thing. And so somebody's like, why are you playing all these sports? And he's like, being in the sports is better than going home.
Right.
You know, it's just, and what he did in his grades, it just blew me
I
away.
love those kinds of stories too. They also show how, and I love that you're here because you get to look at the resiliency. We do have to understand that at the end of the day, even at a collegiate level, they're kids.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they are.
Exactly.
They're trying to experience the dream, whatever their dream is. It may be this, big, far-reaching thing, but they're really working for it, and they're taking huge risks.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to experience a bigger disappointment than most of us have because it's on a national stage.
Yeah.
So shout out to all of them, every single one that is making it and is going to be playing in March Madness.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, before we go, I do have to read a quote from Miss Danielle Fitzhugh. She said, "This is where hearts are broken, dreams upset, and the unexpected shine. It must mean it's March Madness."
Hey.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Dan.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Which team is that in the NIT?
Right. Next week we'll definitely dive more into
So
our
is my
brackets. Calvin, thank you so much for
Oh,
coming
thank you
on
guys for
the
having me.
show. We really
sponsoring us.
appreciate you sponsoring us. We really appreciate the knowledge that you have given for us. Do you want to shout out your business one more time?
Core Mortgage in Chesterfield, Virginia, over in the Boulders. We do residential and commercial loans.
All right. Soon to be Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
Yeah.
mention next week, just shout out to Dr. Danny. She brought up something that's real serious. I do think next week we should focus, kind of talk about it a little bit. Hopefully it'll be resolved, but just prayers and well wishes to the family of Brittany Griner.
Yeah.
It's a big deal where, there's a lot of global conflict right now. And we have, someone who has represented us as an Olympic athlete, who was a phenomenal representation of women's basketball here, both in the college level and then at the WNBA level. So next week, I really, I'm glad Dr. Danny will be back next week, and we should
really talk about
a
that.
little bit.
All right, well, we'll see you next week on Women Speaking Sports RVA. Don't forget, you can catch us on ESPN and The Choice. Thank you again to our sponsors. You've met one of our sponsors, but also shout out to Jerry Howard, Fast Signs, and Mike King Biz, and the Hilton for always hosting us for a great show. We'll see you next week. Also, stay tuned, catch us throughout the week at Women Speaking Sports RVA. See you next week.
All right.
All right. No problem. That was fun.
Played on the same day.